10 degrees. That's the entire margin. Drop the temperature of the fuel running through a container ship's engine by 10 degrees, and the engine stops accepting it. Out in open water, that isn't a warning light. That's the ship going dead, with the nearest help days away. Every engine on that ship was built by people who knew this could happen. They built it anyway, on purpose, around a fuel this unforgiving, when an easier fuel was sitting right there the whole time. That fuel is diesel. And the reason it was never chosen is bigger than one ship, one engine, or one gauge. Start with what's actually flowing through that pipe. It isn't diesel. It's heavy fuel oil. The residue left behind after diesel and everything else usable has already been pulled from the barrel. The engine itself is still a diesel engine, the same compression ignition design as the one under a truck. What's different is the fuel grade it's built to run on. Cold, heavy fuel oil is closer to solid than liquid. Getting it ready to burn takes staged heating, past 100 degrees Celsius just to move through a pipe, and higher still by the injectors, depending on grade. Diesel asks for none of that. So the question isn't why heavy fuel oil is hard to manage. It's why an entire industry was engineered around a fuel this demanding. When an easier option already existed, the demands don't stop at heating. Heavy fuel oil carries sulfur, ash, and metal contaminants that diesel doesn't, and those contaminants attack cylinder liners over time. So every part built to touch this fuel is oversized and paired with lubrication systems diesel engines never needed. Separators spin around the clock, pulling sludge and catalyst fines out before the fuel reaches the injectors, a full-time job for part of the crew that wouldn't exist on a diesel-burning ship. Engineers work shifts in rooms near 50 degrees Celsius, next to fuel lines hot enough that bare skin doesn't touch them twice. None of that is a design flaw. It's the price of choosing this fuel over diesel. The first reason is what it costs. Nobody refines heavy fuel oil on purpose. It's what's left when everything sellable is already gone, which means it's priced like waste, not like fuel. In recent years, that's put it somewhere in the range of $150 to $300 cheaper per ton than diesel, though the exact gap moves with the oil market. A large ship can burn roughly 200 tons of it in a single day, savings that can run close to $40,000 daily, the better part of $1 million per crossing, and tens of millions over a ship's working life, sometimes more than the ship cost to build. Even the heaters, separators, and lubrication systems needed to manage it typically pay for themselves within months, because the daily savings are large enough to absorb the cost that fast. What does that mean in practice? For many operators, fuel alone can swallow up to 60% of what it costs to run a voyage, and nearly everything you own crossed an ocean to reach you. Switch that fuel to diesel fleet-wide, and that cost doesn't stay buried in a shipping company's accounts. It moves straight into every price tag downstream. Diesel lost this argument before a single ship left port. It's the same math behind slow steaming. Many operators now run their engines at reduced speed purely to stretch that cost advantage further. Nobody slows a diesel engine on land to save money the same way. The advantage only exists at this scale, with this fuel. That's reason 1. Reason 2 has nothing to do with money. Diesel is the cleaner fuel, and shipping burned the dirtier one anyway for decades, largely unscrutinized. The sulfur in that exhaust settled over cities near major ports, Rotterdam, Singapore, Los Angeles, showing up in hospital admission records and acidified rainfall. In 2020, regulators finally capped how much sulfur a ship could legally emit, 0.5% on the open ocean, tightened to 0.1% inside the designated zones closest to the most sensitive coastlines. This was the moment diesel should have won by default. The cleanest fix available was sitting right there, mandated by law. Most operators didn't take it. The industry had 3 real options: switch to diesel-grade low-sulfur fuel, install scrubbers, and keep burning heavy fuel oil, or move toward LNG. Most switched to low-sulfur fuel, but a meaningful share, concentrated in the largest ships, chose scrubbers instead, betting they could keep burning cheaper heavy fuel oil and still meet the limits. Either way, diesel had regulation pushing in its favor and still lost ground to another option, a second, independent test confirming the math rarely worked out in diesel's favor. Even the fix wasn't complete. Some scrubbers wash the exhaust with seawater, then discharge it straight back into the ocean. So many ports have banned the practice that the industry didn't remove the problem, it relocated it, out of the air, into the water. 2 losses for diesel, for 2 completely unrelated reasons. The third loss is mechanical, and it's the part almost nobody explains. The engine running above that fuel gauge is one of the largest machines humans build that can move under its own power, the biggest reciprocating engines on Earth, over 2,000 tons, standing taller than a 4-story building. Walk into that room and you don't hear a car engine, you feel it, one heavy pulse roughly every half second, turning at only around 100 revolutions per minute. That's an engine breathing in long, slow pulls, a compression stroke you feel more than hear. A stroke that's slow is built around a fuel that burns slow and heavy to match it, the way a fire holds a steadier burn on thick logs than on paper that flares and vanishes. Diesel isn't incapable of running in an engine this size. Ships do exactly that near coastlines and inside emission control zones, where regulations require it. But built around heavy fuel oil for scale, this engine and its fuel system are optimized for a slower, heavier burn. Run it on diesel for an entire crossing, and you're not gaining performance, you're just paying more for fuel the engine wasn't designed to make the most of. Heavy fuel oil's thickness is what makes the heating equipment necessary, and what lets it burn correctly in an engine built to move this slowly. In a small, fast engine, it fails immediately, won't atomize, clogs injectors within minutes. At that end of the scale, the 2 fuels genuinely aren't interchangeable. It's only at this larger scale that the choice becomes economic rather than mechanical. There's a quieter advantage in the same fuel that causes all the trouble. Heavy fuel oil has a higher flash point than diesel, so it can sit in a ship's tanks for months without degrading. On a voyage where the nearest port is 2 weeks away, that stability is worth as much as anything on the price sheet. Price, pollution, and the economics of the engine itself, 3 separate tests, decided independently, decades apart. Diesel lost all 3. None of that makes this permanent. New efficiency rules are already tightening what a ship is allowed to emit. The risk isn't hypothetical. In 2011, the container ship Rena struck a reef off New Zealand, flooding cargo holds and spilling hundreds of tons of heavy fuel oil onto nearby beaches in what became the country's worst maritime environmental disaster. Arctic waters, just as vulnerable to a spill that could never really be cleaned up, are now under an IMO ban on heavy fuel oil as of 2024, though exemptions and waivers mean a large share of ships operating there can keep using it until the ban fully phases in by 2029. Other fuels are being tested to eventually take HFO's place, measured against the same 3 questions that left diesel behind: cost, global scale, and whether an engine can be built to run on them. LNG burns cleaner but needs cryogenic storage and new engines. Methanol and ammonia are promising but still scarce. Biofuels can't yet supply global demand. None of them are diesel either. The infrastructure built around heavy fuel oil took decades to put in place, and none of that investment ever pointed toward diesel. Back on that ship, the fuel climbs back past its threshold and starts moving again. Someone logs the number and checks the next gauge. It's the ordinary, unremarkable cost of running on the one-fuel diesel could rarely beat at this scale, held steady by heat, by constant attention, and by a margin of error that has to be protected every hour the ship is at sea. Diesel didn't lose this argument by accident, and it didn't lose it once. It lost on price. It lost on pollution, even with the law on its side. It lost on the economics of the engine itself. 3 separate tests, largely the same result every time. Heavy fuel oil isn't running through that engine because no one thought to ask about the alternative. They asked 3 different ways, decades apart, and arrived at the same answer more often than not. Every ship crossing an ocean right now is still running on that verdict. So is every price tag on everything it's carrying. Of those 3 reasons, which one do you think gives out first? Is the receipt,